Welcome to the second webinar in our series with Sam. Today's topic is Sam's role in SaaS management and security. Last webinar was really good. We had lots of questions coming in from you guys, so please keep them coming for this webinar as well. Anything that we don't have time to answer in the Q&A, we will then get back to you by email, but it was really nice to see a lot of active participants in the last webinar. My name is Marcel Burton. I'm a software and cloud analytics advisor working for Crayon in Finland, and I have about 8 years of experience in software asset management. With me today is Alex from Zensa.
Thank you, Marcel. So my name is Alex Koiken. I'm VP of International Sales in Zensam. I've been part of Zensam for the last 7 years, but have doing 15 years of licensing and SAM in the Nordics.
So last webinar, we discussed on a high level about SAM objectives and best practices. This webinar, we're going to be going at a more concrete level and talking around topics of SaaS and security. Firstly, Alex is going to take you through the different methods to discover your SaaS footprint and Zensam's approach to helping organizations discover SaaS. Then I'll talk about the differences between SaaS discovery and license optimization. And finally, we're going to be talking about SAM and as a security and enabler. In this webinar, we're going to be doing a lot more demoing, so it's much more concrete, but that also means that Alex is going to be more active in the webinar, which is good because you might be able to tell from my voice I've got a bit of a flu, so I'm happy about that. Over to you, Alex.
Well, thank you. So we're going to start basically of what kind of different options do we have when it comes to SaaS discovery or web application discovery? What's good about them? What's bad about them? What kind of expected outcome could you have? So we have here connectors to start with. So connector means that you're connecting to, for example, 365 API, Adobe API, Salesforce API, or any other tool vendor's API, and you can get discovery normalization. This can be a good discovery. It's usually really good discovery of the users and what license you have. All of that is visible in the portal. Usually the usage for optimization is very poor. The vendors don't want to give away the kind of usage so you can do the optimization. So you have limited usage for optimizations. When we have a combination of on-premise applications with SaaS applications like Adobe and 365, those are mainly for the enterprise suites or on-premise installations, then you don't have any kind of usage of how much you're actually using the enterprise functionality. What's also bad with the connector is that it is you don't get any shadow IT. You only get what you already know, basically. You have no shadow IT, poor usage. If there's no API, you have no data, basically. You also have a challenge of handling multiple connectors. How many connectors can you handle? If they break or if the vendor's updating this, it's also a hassle to maintain them. You can also use SSO. This is also decent from a normalization perspective. Usually you don't have any usage. You can see when the user is logged in and when they're logged out. So no real usage. Again, no shadow IT, really bad usage. Sometimes there's no API, then there's no data. SSO is also, what I've learned from Marcel, really expensive to turn on. Then you can have browser plugin. Then the discovery is better. The usage is decent. So the browser plugin is pretty good. The problem is very intrusive. You give away a lot of privacy data and not really great discovery data. The financial connector is not really good at normalization. It's a lot of manual work, and you usually don't really get what kind of SaaS applications you have. The usage is terrible. You have no usage from a financial connector, so it's very hard to optimize it, and you can't really do any optimization. You can stop paying for stuff that you haven't really agreed to, but you can also be giving away or terminating data that is someone's cloud. And then we have the final one, and that's agent, where we have the strongest software normalization, and the only solution where you actually get active usage. So this is where we've seen the best outcome, and this is also the solution that Sensam is using. So currently we are tracking 68,000 SaaS applications or web applications from more than 25,000 different vendors. Only business applications. We don't track Netflix, Facebook, or any personal application. It's purely business applications. You have active usage for the best optimization. So you can see how much people are actively working inside the SaaS applications. We're monitoring the HTTPS traffic directly via the agent, so there's no intrusive data we're picking out, and we don't need to use any browser plugins. On top of that, we also combine this with connector to SaaS vendor for additional data, such as the licensing information. You have examples of Google Workspace, we have Office 365, GitHub, Salesforce, Slack, and others to combine this. Now we are going to jump into the actual demo to have a look at it. So right now we can see the Sensam supervisor. This is our user interface. So this is the first dashboard, and here you can actually have the first widget directly where you can see the most used web applications. From this view, we can directly go into that specific web applications to get the kind of information of the vendor and users. So here I get all of the users and exactly how much they've used it. So we can have this on our first dashboard. From our first dashboard, we can actually also just search for any kind of web applications. If I search for a specific application, such as HubSpot, I can see that in this scenario, we have licenses. I can check the compliance, but I can also go to the SaaS applications directly from just a search interface. If I don't I want to search or look at it from the widget, you can also go to software, manage local, and here you have platform where you can easily just filter out on web, and you get everything that is software as a service. As you can see, we have a different icon indicating this is a web, and also we are spelling it out directly here that all of these are web-based application. So we can go into any of these applications. So the benefit of having it like this is now you get all the applications. So in this small demo environment, we have 121 unique SaaS applications, and we can go into any of these ones. Let's say, so with Shadow IT, it's not that you maybe always know what the application is, and then we actually link this to the vendor. So you can click on this one, and it's open up in another tab, the vendor's homepage, so we can understand what kind of SaaS applications are the users actually using. Now I can go into the actual users to get an understanding of how much they are actively working inside of this application. So we have both active usage and average active usage to get an understanding if people are using this a lot on average or just in and peaking of the application. On top of this, we also link this to the user and in reporting. So I'll give you an example. If I'm curious now, I go into a specific user, get a little more in-depth information of the users. We can see the hardware and user they are using. And now I see all the software. And here we can see all of the applications that they are using. And you can see everything that's indicate web is a web-based application. So this user is primarily using web-based applications. And we can also get an understanding of what are the applications that they're primarily using. And the last example would be from a reporting perspective. So with this report that is called software per user with monthly usage, we can get an understanding of how much they use the application. And I'm going to search for our own application. So we go with supervisor. And here we can see how much. So here we have the different users, and we can see the usage behavior for the last 6 months. But then we have, October, November, December, January, February, for example. And here we see how many times they've opened and closed the application, how much they've actively worked in the application. So 6 hours, 34 hours, 20 hours, 32 hours. And this is the average time they spend in this application. This can be used as shared as a report at any time. And the same as the previous view, you can export this also at any time. If we go further now to SaaS discovery versus license optimizations, I'm going to hand over this to Marcel.
Thanks, Alex. Waiting for the slides to show up. I had to say, ZenSam, a very powerful discovery and reporting tool. There we go. The slides were removed efficiently. Thank you. And next, I would like to talk about the difference between SaaS discovery and license optimization. I think you might be one slide too far, Alex, if you could go one back. Maybe not. Let's see.
Yeah,
it could be that one.
No, sorry, it's my fault. Here, it should be this one, right?
Yeah, that's the one.
Sorry.
Thank you very much. So what we just saw from being demonstrated by Alex was SaaS discovery, for which ZenSam is a really powerful tool. It will tell you what is being used. So discovering your SaaS estate. It'll tell you who is using it, so which users are connecting to these services. And it will also be telling you how often those services are being used. All excellent information from a security perspective, but also from a perspective of optimizing. So if you know who is using a SaaS software, you can optimize based on the user lifecycle. So the joiner, mover, leaver process. Someone leaves the organization, you have a clear overview of what SaaS services they have been using. Obviously, also because you're getting usage data, if you see that a user is still in the organization but they're not using those services, then you can contact them to understand whether the license can be freed up or the subscription can be freed up and get cost savings through that way. License optimization is not looking at the kind of usage of the SaaS. Stay on the last slide, please, Alex. Don't go forwards yet. It's not looking so much at what the usage is, but it's looking more from a vendor perspective of what different license models or license levels are available and how you can match those license levels to how the user uses the SaaS services. Now you can jump to the next one. So when I think about license optimization, I think it's useful or beneficial to categorize SaaS into at least 2 different buckets, maybe even more. But a simple split would be to split them into enterprise-wide and function or business-specific SaaS. This kind of helps you prioritize and understand the requirements and the optimization potential for these different types of SaaS that you may be using in your environment. Enterprise-wide SaaS is usually wider scale, higher volume of users, and also has more granular licensing options. It enables you to optimize based on a user role or based on actual usage. So good examples of these are Microsoft 365 that currently offers 3 different license levels, E5, E3, F3. Salesforce have multiple different roles, ServiceNow have multiple different roles, Adobe and Autodesk also have different licensing options that you can use to optimize your licensing for each individual user or user type. So, for example, manufacturing industry will have people who sit in the office. They will also have people who sit on the factory or work on the factory floor. Those 2 different profiles will then usually require different license levels, or you can find cost optimization by providing different level licenses to those different types of users. Function-specific or business-specific software is usually more simple, could only be 1 SKU. Some SaaS providers don't have any kind of different license levels, they just have one license for everyone. ThinkCell is a good example of that. Or then they may have very simple license levels such as basic, standard, and premium. But most of the time, what we see is that when there's business-led procurement, there might not be real knowledge of what features are required for the end user. So just to be safe, the premium level package is purchased more often than the basic or the standard level package. All right, you can jump to the next slide. So talking about function-specific SaaS first, obviously when you're thinking about how can I optimize costs for these smaller, lower volume SaaS with a limited amount of users, you could prioritize based on cost data. So that there's usually hundreds, if not thousands of these types of SaaS. So you're never going to be able to optimize everything, but kind of finding your 80-20 split based on cost data is a useful way to find out where you should be looking to make cost savings. Then you would review the licensing with the product owners to see if based on the kind of matching the features to the users, where you can make any kind of savings. And Autodesk is one good example for function-specific SaaS. So engineering software, but they offer user-level licensing or a new kind of licensing model called flex licensing, which is basically that you pay per usage. So if you have a light user, it will be more cost efficient to license them on this kind of pay-as-you-go flex licensing model rather than having a user per year license. So often the vendors, they do offer different kind of licensing models that will enable you to optimize. However, you always have to take into consideration your organization's policies and what's included in the different packages. Like Alex referred to earlier, SSO can be expensive, and one of my favorite websites around this topic is a website called sso.tax, so SSO tax, and it's basically a naughty list of SaaS providers which have increased the license price of the license package, which includes SSO, to astronomical proportions. So basically, a security feature such as single sign-on isn't included by default. The customers have to pay a premium price to have it, and this is obviously disgruntled a lot of the users. So this SSO wall of shame is quite a useful website to see what kind of effect that does have. So if your organization does have a policy of every SaaS application must have single sign-on to be used, there's no local credentials or any other way of logging in, then most likely you will have to buy the premium license level. And because it's your policy to have single sign-on by default, there may be less optimization potential. So you always have to look at what's included in the different license levels and understand your own organization and what policies for you are it's not acceptable to go against them. All right, let's jump on to enterprise SaaS. Like I said, more granular, more options. It's always important to first establish what you own and what you're entitled for. You have a high level of users, so there's more complexity just purely because of volume as well. So the first step to do is to understand what you own and what is the value of what you own. Then you can take kind of simple steps to optimize these licenses, identify unallocated licenses that you're paying for, identify inactive users, identify users who have duplicate licenses. But then when you've kind of done the easy steps, so to speak, then it comes down to kind of mapping what the different license products or license levels include and matching them to your own internal user profiles. And here's an example of doing that kind of process. And this is something that Crayon does very actively with their customers when it comes to more complex enterprise SaaS products, is we help do the analysis of what kind of different license profiles the customer has and how to optimize it. Because what we find is it's very difficult to know in advance. So when you're signing the contract and you're onboarding a new tool, you give it your best guess of this is the licenses that these different groups of users need. But then once you've been using the product for a while, you've gathered usage data. Often what we find is that actually the initial kind of best guess approach, there's a lot of room for optimization based on actual usage. So thinking about Microsoft 365, we could get the data from the portal. We would combine it with the data from a SAM tool such as ZenSAM, so you get the kind of on-premise usage of the Office products. And then we would benchmark the data from the Office portal, from the SAM tool, against the different user profiles and what is available in each user profile SKU or license SKU against the customer's actual usage. And there's an example there of Microsoft 365 and Office 365. The example is no longer valid. It has old package names, but you can see that, for example, with regards to Outlook and OneDrive, the F3 and the F1 and the E3 license levels have different rights with regards to mailbox size. So our analysis would basically go through the customer's data, matching against these restrictions that have been set by the vendor, to then find out, okay, these users can actually use a license which is not E3, that is F3, and that way, obviously, when you're talking high volume, you're also talking high savings. So this is an approach that we take with many SaaS providers, and what we kind of build on top of the SaaS discovery practices, really going deep into the license level to find those optimization areas. Cool, Alex. I think this was my last one, so we're going to jump into a demo once again. I think you're going to show off the Microsoft 365 and talk a little bit about security.
Exactly. So we talked about looking into any kind of SaaS applications directly from this portal, and this includes also, as we can see here, we have the apps for enterprise suite, so we get all of the both web and on-premise applications in the same suite. But what we also do is combining this together with the connector. So we set up the 365 connector, and then we get plenty of reporting that will support you in your optimization journey. If you start to looking into what we're getting from the portal, you get all of the licenses. So we mirror what you get from the 365 portal with the amount of total licenses and assigned licenses, and if you have any unassigned licenses, together with the cost. And yeah, I want to remind everyone that feel free to ask any questions in the chat. We'll take them by the end of the session. You also get, of course, the license per user. So here you get full name, email address, and the assigned license. What you get together when you have this in SenseTime solution is we're combining the email address from the 365 portal with the email address we have identified on the users. And then you also can see which part of the organization they belong to. We're also going to be able to see that license are created here in the under the license. So you don't actually have to import the license. It is also allocated to the actual users. So here we have a tab called Assigned Cloud Licenses, and then we see that this user has been assigned an E3 and these three Adobe licenses directly from the portal, so you don't need to add licenses by yourself. Then we're trying to support our friends from Crayon or any license manager by looking into exactly what Marcel was talking about. We have double assignments, so then we're looking into who is the user, what email do they have, and the double assignment licenses. For example, Exchange Online archiving and an E3, the Exchange Online archiving is included in that suite. Then we suggest to remove the Exchange Online archiving because it's included in the E3 suite. We also combine the data with different sources. So here we have all the list of all your 365 subscribers that is not in your Active Directory. It might be a off-boarded person that you're still paying a license for, or it might be a consultant that has left, but you're still paying a 365 licenses for it. So you can see the license that you've assigned to them, the user and the email, and when they were last updated. With the 365 connector, it's not just about 365. You also get this for Project, Visio, and Dynamics. It also cover Power BI. But then to the more complex piece, we're looking into how you can optimize this. And this will be different from each different customer because you will have different thresholds. You will do your own user profiling. This profile gets an E3, and if you're in this profile, you get an E1 or an E5 or an F license. But what we can do, as it says here, is that in the fields, you get all of the enterprise components that we have accumulated, and we look into the active usage, and then you set your own threshold in the value 2 and decide what kind of usage is not enough that they should be removed from the E3. So under this active usage 2, if you say they minimum have to have 50 minutes of usage, all the users who has less than this amount of minutes, they will be in the report for optimization to downgrade them to a lower version. On top of that, you can also look into each individual user and components, individual application users. So we have user, full name, email, their assigned licenses, if they have an E3, E1, or whatever application they might have, the application name, such as Office, Excel, SharePoint, OneDrive, Word, and then you get the exact usage they have for each individual application, because it might not just be enough that you have a lot of Word usage. We need you to use Excel or Outlook or Teams or whatever application you think is driving to have the more higher application. So this optimization report is also included. So you get different reporting for 365, and that includes also if you are in education, for the same for education licensing and dynamics. And we can look in quickly to, for example, Adobe as well, where you get similar reporting. And we're not going to go through all the different users, but Adobe and Microsoft are two big ones, and they're kind of similar. So here you get the same. You get this for all the connectors, the total amount of licenses, if they're assigned, unassigned, and license cost. The license users, if they, the username, what assigned licenses they have, and which part of the organization they are, and then of course an optimization report. So here you can see pre-built recommendations depending on what they're actually using. So in some scenarios, it's actually cheaper to move them up to the suite or downgrade them to the suite because they're not really utilizing that enterprise components. And then we can also go into a report where you can see exactly on the application and how much they're using it. So now we're going to go into the security piece as well. So here we can look into what we call second line of defense. So Sensum is not a security solution, but we give additional value with the discovery that we have. And what we are tracking is malware, potential unwanted applications, and viruses. So if you get anything in your environment that your antivirus are not able to pick up, we are able to help you sort this out. That's why we're calling this a second line of defense. So we're showing this MD5, and then we link this to a third party called VirusTotal. And what that does is comparing all the different antivirus and how they classify it. So this is tracked down 72 different antivirus, while 42 flags this as malicious. Then you can find which antivirus you're using. It might be that in this scenario we're using McAfee, then they are unable to detect this one. Sensum will then show you the executable pattern and file and which computers that are infected. On top of this, you also get anything that has reached end of life. So this is not supported anymore. You need to patch this and update this. It might be a security risk. We can show you applications with potential GDPR risk. You can build your own kind of block list in the environment. If there's any application you want to get notified if they are being installed or used, and this goes for both SaaS applications and on-premise applications. We can show you if there's any computers that is missing antivirus, and if you're using Windows Defender, we will show you if that is turned on or off. And the same for BitLocker for encryption. So then we will show you if BitLocker is enabled on any of the drives in your computer from for protection perspective. So we call this second line of defense. We're not going to remove anything. We're not going to block anything. And we're not going to uninstall anything, but we'll be a second line to help you when you are looking into the security department. So with that, we're jumping into the SAM security space. And we talked a little about this, but we have end of life, end of support, blacklisting, and antivirus protection. Today, it's not so much as if you are going to be getting a security breach, it's more about when. From a SaaS perspective, it's more what data is being used or shared as well as a big challenge. We know that a lot of people are using ChatGPT, but have you set up the right policy for when you can use ChatGPT and by whom? And who is using what application for what and when is that being used? So all of this in combination is a really good way for the SAM team to support the security department with a lot of great data and also helping you make sure that you don't have environment that is in the risk of being hacked or have low security, like end of life. And then we're also talking about using a security as a SAM tool. There are really complex pieces when we do software normalization, and that's why we have separate solutions for security and for SAM, but they can help each other in both areas with data. But they're very much limited recognition capabilities if you're trying to use a security solution as a SAM source, and that's not something that we are recommending.
Yeah, I think it's all about collaboration. I think both functions can really benefit from the data that each party has. Obviously, security tools aren't perfect for SAM, like you said, because it lacks the recognition or the intelligence in the background. But at the same time, a SAM tool such as ZenSAM can give a lot of really useful data and actually a lot of really useful functionalities. For example, the blacklisting functionality to then kind of have a mechanism to try and control what is being used, or maybe more to the point, what is preferred to be used from a software perspective. So I think SAM and security, what we see is more and more collaboration between these two functions.
Yeah, they go more and more hand in hand, and there'll be the gap between the two departments will be closing in because they're sharing similar data points.
Yeah.
So if we summarize this, is you can't really manage what you can't see. So this is mainly focusing on both SaaS, but also on-premise data and security and usage. We need to understand what application is being used by whom, how much is being used, and how secure that application or usage is. And then the collaboration between SAM tools, SAM experts like Crayon is essential for optimization because it's such a complex piece. It's not straightforward when it comes to license suites and downgrading because there's a lot of lock-in effects when it comes to this one. So you really need to understand where can you do optimization, where can you move your users to still have enough capabilities that you don't overspend, but still also not kill off functionalities that they might be using if you're moving them from a higher suite to a lower suite. And the third piece is that SAM is a driver of both security and data protection.
Yeah. I think next session is questions, if I'm not wrong, Alex, right?
That is correct.
I don't know, Elisa, I can actually see that we have a few questions in the chat. Elisa, do you want to run the questions?
Yeah, there's a couple of questions. The first one is, how about Mac OS disk encryption and security software? Are you able to alert if they are missing?
No, so we don't have the same capabilities to do disk encryption for Mac. as we do for Windows and BitLocker. We are looking into adding more functionality into the security, but not for Mac encryption. It's more around the NIST database and showing the kind of vulnerability that you have and how that is classified from a security standpoint.
Right. Then there's another question, which goes, what operating systems does Xensum Agent support?
So we support Windows, Mac, and Linux. I wouldn't call web a own operating system, but web is also included that. So you have SaaS applications on top of Windows, Mac, and Linux.
All right, that's great. Then what out-of-the-box SaaS integrations do you offer?
So we support Office 365, Adobe, GitHub, Google Workspace, Salesforce, Slack, Zendesk. Those are the ones that are included out of the box today. This year, we're also going to include ServiceNow, Workday, Azure, and I forgot that we also have Amazon, but that's more for infrastructure as a service and maybe not SaaS. But all of those are the ones that we have out of the box included in the package.
Great, thank you. Those are all the questions that are in the Q&A box, but of course, all the listeners, you can send us questions later on through email.
Yeah, thank you, Elisa. If we jump to the next slide, Alex, I think we just have the upcoming webinar series. So this was number 2 out of 3 webinars and actually 4 events in total. So thank you very much for joining again. Next time, Alex and I will be going through cost savings and cost avoidance in the 3rd webinar in April, so on the 11th of April. More specifically, what we're going to be talking about is active usage, portfolio management, how to use artificial intelligence in cost savings, and then how to approach top tier vendors versus how to approach tail end spend. So very interesting topic once again. Hopefully you can all join us in April. And a week after the final, or a little bit over a week after the final webinar, we will be having our on-site, which is also the precursor to our office warming party. So definitely worth the attendance, as there will be much more than just the 1-hour event that's showing here. There'll be a whole evening of fun. But yeah, thank you very much from my perspective, and thank you to Alex for the really good demos. And like I said, I'm happy that you had the most of the talking, as I found it difficult breathing.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining, and we're looking forward to seeing you on the next event and then at the Crayon office on the 19th of April.
Perfect. Thank you from me as well.
Thank you.